About what was the address?
Production Drive, Raleigh, North Carolina. I had a dream, and then I turn on the lights and I have blood all over me, and there's a bloody knife on the bed, and I think I did it.
A few weeks before her death, Lauren Phelps stopped by her father's house looking for a binder. It should have been a quick visit. Nothing more. But Dale Hugelmeyer noticed something was wrong. His daughter seemed nervous. On edge. Not like herself at all. He didn't ask why. He didn't push. It's a decision he says he's replayed in his mind every day since. Then came August 31st, 2017. Lauren called her sister, Beth Agner. She told her she was done. She decided to leave her husband, Matthew. Beth had no way of knowing it yet, but that call would be the last conversation the sisters would ever share. Hours later, in the early morning of September 1st, Matthew Phelps picked up the phone and dialed 911. What he told the dispatcher would set off an investigation that took over a year to fully unravel. "I think I did it." 5 words. And behind them, a story that didn't add up, one that would eventually expose a side of Matthew Phelps his own family never saw coming. This is the story of Lauren Phelps. And of everything investigators uncovered before the truth finally came out in a Wake County courtroom. But first, you need to know who Lauren really was. Lauren Ashley Nicole Hugelmeyer grew up close to her family, especially her father, Dale, and her older sister, Beth. Theirs was the kind of bond that didn't fade with distance or time. They showed up for each other. Always. As she moved into adulthood, Lauren built a life defined by steady, quiet ambition. She worked as an auditor at Quintiles, a company that ran clinical drug trials for the pharmaceutical industry, detail-oriented work that suited her practical, hard-working nature. She wasn't someone who waited for things to fall into place. She made them happen herself. Those who knew her described her the same way, again and again, kind. Genuine. The kind of person who noticed when something was wrong with someone else, long before she'd ever say a word about herself. By the time she reached her late 20s, Lauren had built something real, a career, a tight-knit family, a sense of who she was and where she was going. What she hadn't yet built was a life with someone who could actually be trusted with all of it. That was about to change, and not in the way anyone imagined. Matthew James Phelps entered Lauren's life looking like exactly the kind of man her family would welcome without hesitation. He was warm. Attentive. He seemed devoted to her happiness in a way that put everyone around them at ease. Beth Agner would later describe just how completely the family opened their arms to him. He seemed to love Lauren in spite of any flaws she could have, she said, and would do anything to make her happy. Nobody in Lauren's life saw a reason to worry. Nobody thought, for even a moment, that she could be in danger. By day, Matthew worked for Dunlap Lawn Service. To Lauren's family, he was easygoing, likable, someone who fit naturally into the fabric of their lives. Lauren and Matthew married in November 2016. It was a hopeful beginning, the kind every family hopes for when they welcome someone new into the fold. But less than a year into the marriage, cracks were already forming beneath the surface. Cracks that Lauren was only beginning to notice. If you're finding this story as unsettling as we did putting it together, hit like right now. It helps YouTube get this case in front of more people. Now, back to Lauren. The first sign of trouble wasn't dramatic. It was financial. Investigators would later reveal that the couple's checking account had been drained, nearly $1,200 spent on iTunes purchases and Xbox subscriptions, money funneled into Matthew's video game habit while Lauren worked to hold their finances together. But money wasn't the only thing Lauren was learning about her husband. Around this same time, she discovered troubling details about his first marriage, information he hadn't been fully honest with her about. Her mother, Laurie Hugelmeyer, later reflected on just how convincing Matthew had been. He was so good at manipulating the situation, she said. Lauren didn't share everything with her family. Only pieces. careful, guarded pieces. But her father sensed it, the nervous visit, the edge in her voice, the sense that something in her life had shifted. By late August, that unease had a deadline. Lauren had made a decision. And Matthew was about to find out sooner than she planned. On the night of August 31st, 2017, Lauren and Matthew got into a serious argument, reportedly after he'd been out with another woman. When he came home, Lauren told him plainly, it was over. She had made her decision. She was leaving. That was the same night she called her sister. Beth could tell something was different in her voice, more certain, more resolved than she'd ever sounded. Neither of them knew it would be their final conversation. Before we go further, if you haven't already, subscribe now. This case only gets harder to believe from here, and you won't want to miss how it unravels. Sometime after 1 a.m. on September 1st, Matthew Phelps called 911. He told the dispatcher he'd taken cold medicine the night before, had a dream, and woke up to find Lauren on the bedroom floor. He said he didn't fully understand what had happened. When first responders arrived at the couple's home on Patchesant Drive in Raleigh, they found Lauren in the fetal position on her bedroom floor. She was rushed to Wake Med, where she was pronounced dead. To the officers standing in that bedroom, something about the scene didn't sit right. It looked less like the aftermath of confusion, and more like something else entirely. What they found next would begin to unravel every part of Matthew Phelps' story. The investigation into Lauren's death moved quickly, and every new piece of evidence pointed further away from Matthew's version of events. Inside the home, investigators recovered a kitchen knife on the bed. An autopsy later confirmed Lauren had been stabbed 123 times. The medical examiner also confirmed something important: Lauren had fought back, and none of her injuries had occurred after she died. Search warrants revealed that investigators believed Matthew had made a calculated effort to clean up his wife's blood before ever picking up the phone to call for help, a detail that stood in direct conflict with the disoriented, confused man heard on the 911 recording. Then came the toxicology results. Investigators found an empty container of coricidin cough and cold inside the home, matching Matthew's claim. But medical experts would later confirm the levels in his system were nowhere near high enough to cause the blackout or hallucination he described. The case took an even stranger turn when investigators uncovered an Instagram account under the username Umati_radical. The account was filled with scenes from the film American Psycho, and photos of Matthew posing as its central character, a man who leads a secret double life as a killer. On September 25, 2017, Matthew James Phelps was formally indicted on a charge of first-degree murder. He would spend the next year maintaining his innocence. But everything investigators had gathered was about to be laid out in full, in front of a judge, and in front of Lauren's family. On October 5, 2018, more than a year after Lauren's death, Matthew Phelps stood before a Wake County judge and changed his plea. Guilty. First-degree murder. The plea was part of an agreement that took the death penalty off the table. In court, Assistant District Attorney Kristen Fetter laid out the financial strain that had defined the final months of the marriage, along with the Instagram evidence investigators had uncovered. Defense attorney Joe Cheshire told the court that Matthew had struggled with depression for years, and that his history included early exposure to violent media as a child. Cheshire was careful to add that none of it excused what he'd done. Lauren's mother, Lori Hugelmeyer, addressed the courtroom through tears. "I have struggled every day since September 1, 2017, to process and deal with the murder of my child," she said. "There are times I feel I won't survive it. This has broken me and my heart." Her father, Dale Hugelmeyer, spoke next, his grief settling into something harder to carry, the weight of having welcomed Matthew into their family without question. When it was Matthew's turn to speak, he addressed Lauren's family directly. "I feel like a monster," he said, "part of the wretched, part of the darkness we don't speak of. This was a senseless, mindless act, and I regret every step that led me in that direction." The judge handed down the sentence, life in prison without the possibility of parole. Matthew Phelps is now incarcerated at Maury Correctional Institution in Hookerton, North Carolina. In the months that followed, Lauren's family turned their grief into something they hoped could help others. They began speaking publicly about the signs they wished they'd caught sooner: the nervous visit, the edge in her voice, the quiet way she'd tried to tell them something was wrong. They called their message Lauren's Light. Because 5 words changed everything that September morning. But it was Lauren's life, but not those 5 words, that her family wanted the world to remember. If this story affected you, consider subscribing for more cases like this one. And thank you for watching.